Hello everyone, my name's Ian and I run a small comic shop called Cromford Collector's Corner in the village of Cromford in Derbyshire. The reason I'm here today is to give a little free advice to anyone that works in charity shops or that knows someone that works in charity shops. Just to give you a little bit of background on me, I've had my little shop for about 6 years. I did quite a lot of sort of online stuff before that, but I've been a comic book guy my whole life. I don't know everything about everything, but I do. There are certain things that crop up quite a lot, and I do meet quite a lot of people that work in charity shops that find comic books very, very confusing and difficult to price and value. And there's a lot of concern that things are being given away that are worth a lot of money and stuff like that. And obviously for charity, it's really important. So I'm just going to go through a few things. I might ramble for a while, but I'm going to go through a few things that hopefully might be helpful to you or to someone that works in the charity sector that comes across comics. My experience is almost the opposite of a lot of people that work in charities concerns, which is, undervaluing things. Quite a lot of the time I think things are overpriced, and not everything is worth a lot of money. And if something is worth quite a lot of money, then I would definitely say do your research, because these things can make a difference. So I will tell you that the comic book scene is massively diverse. And we are talking about a period of time, coming up to, 80 plus years of comic books, American comic books and British comic books. So there is a great amount of diversity within it. So it's quite difficult. I'm going to just give some very general rules, but there are exceptions to these rules. I'll try and mention them as we go along, but I'm going to talk about very general kind of concepts of if someone walks in and donates a box of comics to your charity, what you do with it. So we're going to start off talking about the age and the publisher of a comic. So generally, as a rule, the really, really valuable comics, and we are talking, there are comics out there that are worth millions of pounds. World record last year, I believe, was $6 million on an Action Comics #1. So there are comics out there that are worth a phenomenal amount of money. But there's a lot of comics out there that aren't worth any money, or 20p. So this is really important. So when you're talking about generally as a rule, the really, really valuable ones date from a long time ago. And when you see one, it will be quite obvious, generally, unless it's 1 in a billion, that they're going to look old, okay? There's a variety of formats in terms of their size, but generally, in terms of really, really valuable comics, and I don't have any £10,000 comics to show you in the shop, but they are basically going to look effectively like that. In this smaller American comic format. They'd actually be slightly bigger, because what they call the golden age of American comics in the 30s to 50s, they're slightly larger. But generally, as a rule, they are not A4 size. They have an American comic book format. They will have a cents price on them normally. They won't have a barcode on, because it'll be from before barcodes. And generally, they will have an element of patina to them, and you will be able to tell that they are old. Now, the really big publishers in that time are not necessarily the same ones that are around today, but DC Comics, who are the publisher of Batman and Wonder Woman and Superman, they all came about in the 1930s. We've got quite a few that appear in the 1940s. We've got Captain America, Green Lantern. So there's some serious iconic characters that go back a long time in history. So you want to look out for those. There's a big difference between American and British comics. Okay, so American comics effectively look like that. British comics generally, not all, but most of the time, will look something like that. They're normally in A4 format. And these two, I've got two comics here that date from basically the same time. So that is 1974 copy of Thor, an American comic. It's been remarked with a British price, but is underneath it. You can see that there's a cents priced. It's 25 cents in 1974. This comic, Spider-Man Comics Weekly, dates from 1973. And although it's kind of cool, it's not valuable in the same sense that if you had a near mint copy of an American printing of the same time and the British reprint version, there's a huge difference in terms of value. British comics generally not worth an enormous amount of money. American comics, some worth an enormous amount of money. That's not to say that there aren't British comics that aren't worth money. If you ever saw a Beano #1 from like, I think it's 1938, sure, that is going to be worth a lot of money. But generally as a rule, you know, if you're going across like 80s, 90s Beano, you know, they're worth like 50p at most, in my opinion. Yeah, so that's worth knowing. So generally, when you come across comics, I would imagine, and this is generalizing, that most of the comics you will come across would be what I would describe as low grade. So you may see comics that as I would describe as near mint. So yeah, there's a difference in the way in the UK, generally we grade comics and the way in which they are graded in America. It's the same thing, but in America they generally use a point system out of 10. And in the UK, we generally use a system that goes from poor, fair, good, very good, fine, very fine, near mint, mint. I would be very, very careful about describing something that is mint condition. I would be, yeah. It's a very specific term to use. In my opinion, it's very, very rare to come across something that is mint. Most of my comics, even if they look like literally brand new, I would describe as near mint. You know, if you're a serious level expert, you're going to find little faults, indentations, whatever. It's very rare to see a mint comic. Yeah, so the condition of comics does make a difference. If you're pricing them all at like £2 each, I wouldn't worry about it too much. But if you're trying to get better money for things, then the condition is important. Just generally, if someone brings a box load of stuff in and it's all what I would describe as loose and raw, i.e. it's just a big box of loose comics, they don't look particularly well looked after, then if they're sort of modern-y 80s, 90s, I would say, you know, the chances of there being something really valuable in there is less likely. Possible, but less likely. However, if someone comes and donates a box of comics that are what I would describe as bagged and boarded and look to be in high grade, the chances are that there might be something that's worth a little bit more. The reason I say that is that comic book people generally will keep their nice comics, keep their nice comics in a bag and a board, which prevents a degrading of the comic over time. Generally, as a rule, the boards that we use are acid free, and that means that they do not off gas over time. If you just put a normal piece of cardboard in there, it will off gas. It will produce gases which will damage the comic. So really, you want to use acid free card and these plastic bags. It's not, I don't think you would do that in a charity shop, but if stuff comes in that's in this kind of state, it kind of implies that there might be some value there. Not always, but for me, yeah, I would look at that a bit closer. Key issues, right. So there's a couple of things that you would want to check out in terms of the value of this comic. A lot of comics, as I said, not worth a lot of money. Some comics worth a lot of money, and those comics might be to do with a certain character appears for the first time, or a certain artist works on the comic for the first time, or it's the death of a character, or it's something that makes the comic more important. Now, there are quite easy ways that you can check that, and I don't work for these people, but I use an app called Key Collector, which is free. You can go on the website and you can get a free app. Now, what that will do is, say, for example, someone walks in with a box of X-Men comics, okay? And they're all different eras and all different types, and you don't really know anything about it. You can go onto Key Collector, you can type in X-Men, and it will show you all of the different X-Men comics from across the years. You can, the volumes, so they'll be like volume 1, volume 2, volume 3. So you can then click on that and type in, well, it will show you every single comic from that run that is worth more than the average, whether it's a key issue, okay? And it'll tell you why, and it'll give you a low, middle, and high grade value in dollars. So that would just give you a vague idea. There's a big difference as well between the values on there and what you actually see on eBay and eBay sold listings. But talking about eBay, be really careful. There's some massive jokers on there that'll put a comic that's worth £5 on for £5,000. So be very, very careful when you look at that. What I would advise is to you can go into the advanced section, click on the sold listings box, and it will show you what the comics actually sell for, not what people think they're worth or are trying to get for it. Generally, as a rule, I price most of my stuff like that. I'll look at what they sell for, and I do it for a bit less than that, and they sell. And that's the idea. So that's quite a good way of doing it. So Key Collector, free app, and eBay sold listings give you a good idea. Obviously, I realise that people don't have a huge amount of time, and also, the reason I'm talking about this is that people that work in charity shops, they're dealing with all sorts of stuff all the time. They're not haven't got time probably to work all this stuff out, but hopefully these little things will help. There are variations within American comics, and again, this is like expert level, and it probably wouldn't make any difference to you. It may do, and I have done a video on this before. If you want to check it out, I'll put a link with this video maybe to that one, because you get cents priced, pence priced, newsstand, and direct editions. This only happens for a certain amount of time, but cents priced newsstand editions, i.e. comics that are priced with a cents price and have a barcode, they're a little bit more sought after than pence price direct editions. Direct editions will normally have Spider-Man's head, or the little box where the barcode should be has been filled in with something else. It won't make an enormous amount of difference if you're getting loads of stuff in that's like £1, £2. But if you got like, I don't know, a late 70s key issue in Marvel Comics, you may get that variation. So some, as I said, a little bit more sought after than others. I'll just mention a couple of things that I would avoid. Don't put price stickers on comics. Please don't put price stickers on comics, because if they are raw and you put a price sticker on it, you've kind of knackered it, really. It does happen quite a lot. If they're in a bag, if they're in like a comic bag, then put a sticker on that. But don't write on a comic, don't put a sticker on a comic, because it will devalue it, and it goes from being a sought after thing to being like, so that my major piece of advice is don't write on comics, don't put stickers on comics, because you can get more money for them without doing that. So things to look for generally. You can tell, so as I said, when we're talking about really valuable ones, they're generally old. You'll know straight away because the price on them will be like, 10 cents or less. There will normally be a patina to the comic. It will have, mild soiling, or it will have brown pages, or it'll be brittle. Early comics generally, unless it's something seriously rare, are like that. Early issue numbers. So like if someone walks in and leaves a collection of Spider-Man and there's a number 1 in it, with those markers, you're going to be looking at, like, I don't know, if it's high grade, $10,000 for your charity. So that's worth knowing. What else have I? Just checking my notes. Oh yeah, some characters are more collectible than others. So like Spider-Man, you will always sell Spider-Man, no problem. Other characters, lesser known stuff, bit more difficult. But you know, if it's really, really well known things, these things peak and trough in popularity. At the moment, from my experience, Marvel is much more popular than DC, but we'll see what happens. But some characters will always sell, others less so. What else have I put? So my key points from this video are: use eBay sold listings to give you a vague valuation of the items that you have. You can, rather than having to type in the name and the title and the issue number of the comic, you can, if you're doing it on your phone, you can just take a photo and it will show you examples, and you can even check from that sold examples. That's a massive time saver. If you are unsure of the age of the comic, so this, I've got a really knackered Justice League of America from 1974 here, and its covers come off and it's all, so it's like a £2 comic, even though it's old, right? But inside, so it doesn't say the year on the front of the comic, but if you wanted to check the year of the comic, if you look inside, on the bottom, I'm going to take that off. On the bottom of the first page inside is the indicia, and in here it tells you all sorts of technical information, where it was published and blah 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 blah. But it will tell you what volume it is, what issue number it is, and what year it was published. So in this instance, it's volume 15, number 112, published in July 1974, and that is all. That information is all there. Now, in more modern comics, sometimes it can be in the back inner page, sometimes it can be 2 or 3 pages in, but you want to look for that indicator. That will tell you the age of the comic. So use eBay sold listings. Check Key Collector, because that's where you will find out if one of these comics out of 200 is worth more than all the rest put together. Try not to damage the comics any more than they already are. Try not to overprice the comics. If you're into the serious high-end stuff, you will probably want to try and give it some sort of grade, so give some kind of idea as to what condition you think it's in. If something comes in that strikes you that it's too good to be true, it probably is. There are quite a lot of reprints of early comics. So Action Comics #1, the one that sold last year for $6 million, there've been quite a few reprints of that. So be very careful. If you think you've got something like, oh my God, I've got $1 million comic. It might be, the 1981 reprint. Worth knowing. If you can't see it on eBay, if you take a photo of it and you put that issue number in, and it doesn't immediately come up with quite a lot of examples either for sale or sold, the chances are it might be something a little bit rare. Most stuff is on eBay. Even like the really rare stuff. So you're going to find an example most of the time. It happens to me quite rarely that I can't find an example, or I come across something that I've not seen before, once in a blue moon. And I sort of do this stuff on a daily basis. So I'm going to leave it there, guys. I hope that has been interesting in some way for you. If there is anything I can do to help local charities in terms of advice, I do not mind. But I would say to members of the general public, I don't necessarily give information for free. But I will, if someone comes if you're in a charity shop in Bakewell, Matlock, I don't know, Ashbourne, anywhere near Cromford, and you want to give me a phone call, I will happily give you any advice that I can to assist you. hopefully that's helpful. Thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate it. And if there's anything I can do for you, please do let me know. Thanks so much, everyone. See you later. Bye.